We are in VUCA Times. VUCA everything. It's almost like a word that we use on a daily basis. Well, today we're actually going to talk about playing offense or defense. And yes, we know it's Super Bowl time season coming for football, but we're not talking about that today. We're actually going to be talking about is what strategy do you have and how do you integrate it when it comes to strategy, people, and process. So we're going to get started here, starting now. Welcome, everyone. Those of you that are on LinkedIn Live, hello. Welcome to our main platform. But those of you that might be watching us on our other platforms, Facebook, YouTube, or whatever, welcome as well. We have a special guest today. So we're talking about playing offense or defense and what your strategy, but we have, and Golubina, this is a treat, everyone. Those of you that are joining us, get in, join us, have the comments, because we're going to get real about what this really means today. And of course, it's always about rethinking the possibilities and options around this. That Golubina is all about strategy and operations, but I love the where you come from because you have a financial perspective when it comes to this. And this is the sweet spot where I come from, talking about like the agile OKRs and the aspect of change. And Roxana, you are all about leaders and professional development and looking at talent in that way. So I think we have a nice mix today. What say the three of you, or three of us, the two of you?
Explosive mix in the house. So welcome, Golubina. Thanks for joining us today.
It's great to be here. I'm super excited about this topic because I work in tech startups. So it's like VUCA times all the time.
Yes, it is. And where I found this really interesting because a lot of the organizations that I go into today, it's not that they don't care or thinking about strategy. It's not that they don't care about improving their processes or even people. But where it starts to get challenging is how are they integrating it together so they can truly create adaptive systems. And that piece of it is so important. So in your perspective, working with tech startups, how's that been looking like of how they integrate it, especially on a financial perspective?
It's different from company to company, but there are some key items or themes that I've seen across many different companies. So if we want to start with, what VUCA Times is for some of those listeners that may not know, right? It's volatility, uncertainty, complexity, ambiguity. And what I've seen in the tech industry is this is the common theme across every company I've ever been in. There's innovation in these companies. They're always trying to be on the cutting edge of technology. So there's a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of volatility because we never know how the markets are going to turn out. Or is the market going to react well to our product or service or not? And then there's so much complexity when you're trying to innovate and quickly to get ahead of the market. There's so much that needs to be unpacked and understood. And ambiguity, it feels like it's second nature in startup. Every job description that I've ever written for tech startup, I start with, you have to be comfortable with ambiguity.
Yeah, because it's the nature of the business for them, right?
Yeah. Exactly. And for folks that are coming into the tech industry but are very uncomfortable with uncertainty and ambiguity, it's a challenge. So we start always by, outlining the vision. What is the vision for the company? How does everyone's role fit into that vision? So we create that shared purpose, obviously,
Yes.
right? That's at the top. And then we formulate the strategy. But one interesting thing that I learned recently that I want to share with you, I've been reading this book called Turning the Ship Around. It's by David Marquette.
Very agile book.
Yeah, one of my mentors recommended it, and I learned this thing, and I've always tried to do this, but now I can put a theory behind it and practice for somebody that made it work. Bring the strategy to the mid-level in the organization.
Oh my God. A
Right.
woman after my own heart.
Oh my God, that's so powerful, because that's where it breaks, right? Right in the middle.
Always.
And he
I
said,
have my own stories on that one.
Yeah.
David Marquette says, bring the strategy and the decision making to the people that have the information. We're doing the opposite. We're taking information and building context and presenting it to executives and making them make the decisions. But they don't always have the right context. They don't always have all the information, especially if we want to make decisions very quickly in this ever-changing world, right? It's better to bring it to the mid-level. And that's another way we keep people engaged. To make decisions, you have to be engaged. You have to really be in the details of things. And engagement drives better productivity, better life at work, right? So many positive influences from that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you don't really get engagement otherwise. Like, if you want people to be engaged, then you have to involve them in the conversation, because otherwise, what are they going to be engaged about? And how are they going to do that? Just because they're thinking, I need to be engaged, but okay, in what exactly am I supposed to be engaged?
I bring this up a lot, and I love where you're going with people, because we tend to look at things very linear, or it's a one and done. And I like to use the word adaptive systems, because when I say that, it's taking all of the things that we're talking about and saying, well, how do we truly adapt? And there's many different ways how to get somewhere. I mean, knowing us, we're the land of possibility, right? There's not one way. But what we love to challenge is, are you even rethinking of your approaches today around that? Because with people, how well are we able to adapt, knowing one thing? And here's one thing that really interests me lately, and this is kind of something I'm pondering lately, is we're working so much on mindset. And when we work on mindset and people are going through their personal transformation, and in agile, we're all about changing more from a fixed to a growth mindset, and yada yada yada. Well, when we're starting to look within, right, and we look at leadership, you're going through a personal transformation where you're questioning, one is, what is my purpose, right? And going through that process and reevaluating what really are your core values as an individual, and also those beliefs. We know that all performance coaching, or even sports coaches, all those coaches out there for executives, right? They are helping them manage their beliefs and things that are holding them back from success, right? Success coaching. And so it makes me wonder, is all that work that we're doing with people, their values and belief systems are probably changing. And what are we doing to be able to intelligently adapt to that? Because as they grow, are we adapting our strategy and processes, or how is our strategy adapting with the people, vice versa, right? It's almost like this big connecting web. And so we want to line up. We talk about adaptive strategies. We talk about agile and having that ability to be adaptive in those processes, because it naturally creates that, right? They used to call it adaptive project management, but we don't think about how this all integrates with each other.
Yeah.
Right? Like a big gigantic ecosystem. And that's what I challenge everyone is, how are we rethinking that? Are we continuing with the way that we see things, structure or organizations that way? Or just even saying, okay, we know that we're in the Titanic and we can't just like poof change our structure. We can't change the way that we're working. It doesn't work that way, right? Come on, be reasonable, Veronica. But the reality is that we have to, and I love where you were going. We need to make sure we're aligning on that purpose, having a clear vision and the goals. If your goal is to be adaptive, what kind of plan, what kind of path are you creating to even get there?
Right. It all starts with people. People make the company successful, right? There's no companies without people. And one thing that I've learned, and now I can put a term to it for what I've been doing over my whole career, is leveraging networks. leveraging networks is just the new way of getting things done.
I love that.
And it's not the career advancing networking, exchanging business cards from the past to the legacy networking. It's just how we get stuff done. We connect with people across the organization, outside of the organization. We connect with our customers, partners, vendors, and that's how we solve problems and get stuff done. That's one way that I've noticed when everybody is so engaged in the company, it's easy to define processes, especially when you know that those are expected to change. So you're thinking about the processes to conform to the 90% of the use cases, and then the edge cases you solve as they come, right? That's how we do process re-engineering at every company. We don't spend months and months defining a process just to realize that the circumstances have changed
Oh, yes.
since we started
Exactly.
defining.
And that's my point about being adaptive, that even the process of even trying to change is rigid in itself, right? It's not even adaptive of its own. I love when you were talking about tech startups, and this is kind of a question back to you, is there comes a certain point where the essence of a startup, when you start to scale and get bigger, you start to become what you fear. And that is that all the things that we're talking about, where it becomes harder to have that flexibility and adaptability, because now you have more people in the mix, and more people could be, there's different kind of people now in the mix, and do they have those same kind of relationships, or how are we ensuring that our communication is effective and what we need to do, right? The more people you add to the mix, the harder it is. And the one thing that I see is a huge opportunity. There's like probably this sweet spot point in a business, that when you go from I'm a startup to now when I'm scaling, I need to grow up and put my big boy pants on and make sure I don't become what I fear.
That's a challenge, and I've seen it many, many times. One thing that I've seen really works is when the company pivots to over communication. And over communicating the vision, the strategy, but also over communicating complexity. So there are problems we're trying to solve. So we try to break them down into small, manageable pieces, obviously, and then just keep repeating and telling everyone what the problem is and what are the smaller problems each of them need to solve for their own specific areas. And I've seen that if you have those generalists, and I'm not a big fan of the word generalist, but I like people that can go in between functions and just solve problems. Those are the key resources that you need in a startup that's scaling. You need to be able to connect the dots, break the silos, and just function as one organization. Because the biggest problem in startup scaling is when you start having those silos and we start shipping the org chart to customers. It's like, it's not me, it's them, right? I'm not responsible for this, the other department is. So we end up hurting the customer experience, that ends up hurting the company overall. So making sure that those silos don't form and we keep that cross-functional over communication going is one way to really manage the scaling of operations and make sure that we don't fall into that siloed, bureaucratic, big company type mindset.
And sometimes they do it without even realizing they did it. A lot of times when someone comes over from another company, what's the natural thing that happens? They bring their friends along. But their friends are actually from the big company that they left to actually start their own company, right? Or or be a CEO of another company. But you get my point. And they bring that hierarchical thinking, and most of the time for them to come over to your company, they want a certain position.
Right.
And so hence the hierarchy begins. And then you might wake up one day, and those of you that are CEOs out there, I might be saying something that you're probably worrying about right now, is that you go, wow, I just created what I left. Yeah. What do I do now? I got to flatten my organization. What do I do now? But getting back to, I think, an element that kind of crosses both when we talk about strategy, process, and people, and I'd love your thoughts on it, and Roxanne as well, is is customer centricity and measuring. I see a lot that we want to adapt agile. We talk about customer centricity, but a huge gap, right, is the element of measuring. We don't measure what matters, and we really aren't sure. They want to talk about just KPIs and health metrics, but there's nothing really inspiring and goaling about a KPI. I mean, a KPI just says, okay, I'm at the doctor, my blood pressure's good, right? My temperature's good, but that doesn't tell you, are we going where we need to go in our strategy? Especially those, if you're a startup or growing or a company in VUCA Times and you want to differentiate, KPIs don't give you different.
They don't give you different, they give you the same kind of hierarchy that we're all used to having. And it's not, again, if you're gonna measure me on some things, then you can't tell me that I'm not performing on this other measurement scale that I didn't even know about, that I didn't even know existed, that I didn't even know that you were gonna watch me perform on that. So it's talk about KPIs and how we measure performance and how we measure transformation. We don't have it, because the problem is we're looking at appraisal, performance reviews, all of that kind of stuff, which happens so rarely throughout the year. That's not helpful for anyone, and it's actually such a struggle for people to even find time to have that kind of conversation.
I think
much less to care about the conversation, right? So we need to talk about the spider web and the networks. That's what makes them effective, is a regular feedback system that goes through and moves around through this spider web throughout the network, so that you actually have feedback that's given on time so that you can actually do something with it. And I think if we changed the KPIs from role measurement to customer centric measurement. Who are your clients? What are your outcomes? What does your performance need to look like so that your clients are happy? It doesn't matter if your clients are external clients or internal clients or both, but just measure against that and see how people take accountability and responsibility towards what it is they're doing, and give them feedback so that they can keep some kind of actions in place that are good, and so that they can change the kind of actions that are not good or not as effective as it should be. And then that is more realistic to what the workplace starts to look like right now, I think.
And what about you, Golubina? I know that when it comes to probably the conversation of measuring what matters, I'm sure you have some thoughts around that one as well.
I mean, data-driven insight and decision making is critical, especially when we live in times that there's not necessarily that historical precedent for what we're doing in the tech industry. I mean, we're trying to invent things, right? So these are all new problems that we're trying to solve, and you can't rely on how it's been done in the past or lessons learned from another company that tried. Occasionally you can, but there's something different about what you're trying to do within your company. So in those cases, you have to rely on analyzing data, market analytics, industry, trying to understand your customers, deep dive into any piece of feedback you're getting from your customers. That's what really helps. Looking at the data and trying to get new insights for what to do to inform the next decision, and just having that bias for action. It's better to action quickly and figure things out, they're working or not working, and move on, right? We don't have the luxury to do analysis for weeks or months at a time before we make a move. You have to quickly try.
Lean startup at its finest, right? There's a reason why that book became so important. And I like both of your points. And if I would summarize it just a little bit, is you're coming from, Roxana, the human element about that, and what it really makes sense when it, with people is, yes, we're measuring this, but is it really giving us what we need on a people perspective? And with Golubina, you're just basically saying is, hey, you need to be measuring and getting data insights. And if you're not doing it at all, there you go, there's the problem.
Yeah.
One of the things I think, where there was an article that I was reading, hey Lee, what's up? Is that we, because we are going more in an AI and data centric, it doesn't go away from the human element that we still need when it comes to data, right? And so we still need that critical thinking and problem solving and really getting to the root cause and asking those why questions. I love that book, Reframe, what's your problem? Reframing problems, because even when you look at data, you still got to question it. You can't just take it face value.
Right. Absolutely. I mean, we have amazing data scientists and analysts that are pulling so much data together and providing reporting. But then you have to take a step back and really understand what that data is telling you and build the story and then make a decision based on that story, right? And that's where a lot of that thinking comes in. And unless people are engaged and really encouraged to think for themselves, it doesn't happen. The insights are not just coming out of the data themselves. So that's where the human element really plays in the company culture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or people are not ready to share the data that you would like to have from them, right? Because they don't feel they can be transparent. They don't feel that they can trust the process so
Right.
that they can share. And then you have data, but is it reliable? Is it the right data? Is it giving you the truth, or just the polished bit that people felt comfortable sharing?
Yeah, I put Lee's comment there, and the one like that kind of hones it. How agile are you? If you're only doing just going through the motions, yay, we have a stand up. We have a PI planning, but you're not able to actually pivot quickly. You're not there yet. You still have a little bit of a journey to go to, and that's okay, right? Because the next question is, how motivated are you as an organization to move there? And what's the impact of you not being motivated to get there? Because again, the whole point of this show today was, what is your strategy in VUCA Times? Because if your strategy is not being able to be adaptable, you're kind of behind the times. Are you going to be that article I posted that's 27 years ago, old, and nothing still has changed? Did you see that? I posted on LinkedIn that 27 years ago.
So we've known all that for 27 years, and yet, well. But I have a question, which goes back to your article as well, Veronica. So how about, because okay, Golubina, you work in tech, and I think we can all agree that tech startups in particular are pretty much forward-thinking companies. But I talk to a lot of people working in corporations or in other kind of more traditional organizations, and the conversation revolves around how can we get back to the office? How can we transition to working from virtually to going back into the office? And the conversation that I really have a hard time having right now is talking to team managers who want to get their team back into the office for, let's say, 2 days a week, and have them engaged and motivated, and less anxious about this return, because guess what? The team actually likes working from home, and the team is actually more productive and more efficient working from home, but they have to get back to the office. So what is it that you see? I mean, I guess the tech world can work virtually very nicely, but what I find is a lot of leaders of teams, large and small, fear the lack of communication, the socializing that comes with, let's say, only working virtually. So what are your thoughts on that?
It's an interesting question. And I think at the core of it is trust and flexibility. We have to, as humans, working is a huge part of our life, right? We spend so many hours at work with our colleagues. And unless we develop that trust, we are not as productive or as effective, even for the company, as we can be.
Any
So
relationship, right?
exactly. But
Yeah.
that's at the core of it. If there's trust, there's going to be flexibility.
Mm-hmm.
And it just all starts from there. And every company can do it in a different way, right? They can allow more or less flexibility, depending on their business model and their needs. But unless there's trust, there's nothing else. So that's what we need to focus on.
It gets to the heart of why are they wanting to bring people back? And this kind of
Yeah.
leads into um, maybe it's the game changer strategist in the three of us that there's not just one way to do something, and then the strategist
Exactly.
part questioning the why because it doesn't make sense. Why are you going to do something when there's so many other ways, right?
Yeah.
Totally our tendency. Are you ready to kind of talk about your results? And this is crazy. Golubina's
This is
results
crazy.
are very similar to ours. Every time that we have someone come on the show, we always say, will you do the GC index with us? And the GC index, I'm going to pop this up while I'm talking here. There we go. So the GC index obviously measures impact, and it's the preferred way that an individual, or we can do a collective of individuals and teaming, right? We're all about teaming these days. And how they align to particular goals and get to action. And so with Golubina, you can see it's pretty much spot on, except for the strategist, right? You're a 6 and we're a 5. It's like, are we on the same universe plane here? It's pretty scary.
This is scary because you don't get like this kind of similarity. I mean, what are the odds? There are 100,000 possible combinations. And yet here we are, the three of us. Veronica and I have the identical one, and then Golubina only slightly different.
I mean, just the fact that we're interested in all these topics so passionately, that tells it all.
Right?
The game changer in us always sees possibilities, challenging the status quo. It's the nature of why Roxana and I even started the show, and then question everything, right? And seeing the patterns of how connected. It's so us in the topics that we bring to the table. You have the polisher of all about excellence, quality of standards, always wanting to do better, but they do it in a way where they can improve the same, but maybe not challenge to be different. Well, our implementer is really about getting things done. Now, obviously, in our mix, we probably could have an implementer with us because we'd probably get more done in our lives because we're always in the creative thinking space. But it was fascinating. What I'd love to learn in your conversation with Roxana, what you discovered and like what you do in your profession, how that aligns with, and things have you thought about maybe your blind spots or the Ghostbuster. Who are you going to call when you want to complement your profile?
I had this amazing coach once. She taught me about the index and what it means and why some roles in my
And is she here?
Roxana was amazing, introduced me to this and taught me a lot. I've had roles in my career where I've been in an implementer position and I just haven't been able to be my full self and enjoy it and really give my 150% every day. And I've struggled and I didn't know why until I saw this, and it just made sense. And I'm realizing in the last few years as I'm hiring for my team, I'm always looking for that skill set because I know that I gravitate towards the game changer and being a strategist and seeing the big picture and connecting the dots, but I need somebody to really make it happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think we can both we can all resonate with that because it's what I find is and I was actually also talking to somebody today about the GC index, and for me, for example, as a game changer strategist, it's always because we see possibilities and we see something that's not there yet, and the struggle sometimes is in communicating that effectively so that other people can make sense of that, because because we can see it doesn't mean that it's going to be obvious for everybody else.
It's a struggle. We almost need a game changer support group. I always say that.
I love it.
I think we need an implementer to create the support group. But it's
no, we would drive that
really
implementer
is
probably
that.
crazy, because they'll be like, seriously, get on with it. Well, what are you guys going to
Yeah.
do? But it's true though. I would curious, like when you were having these implementer jobs, it wasn't necessarily that you probably were really good at it. I mean, looking at your past, I looked at your profile. I mean, you're a highly intelligent woman that was very successful in your career, and it wasn't about your abilities. It was more about probably what we would term today burnout.
Yeah, and whether it was something that I would really enjoy doing versus I can get it done because I know I need to,
Yeah.
right? And the more we have those days where I really am passionate about the work I'm doing, I feel like I'm more productive. I think better. I come up with better ideas. I can get better things done in a better way, right? And when it's something that requires that implementer skill set, I get it done, and I get it done with high quality because that's the standard I set for myself. But the enjoyment I get from that is not the same as if I'm doing some kind of strategy related work. And
I put those things off to the last minute. I don't know about you, but
Yeah.
that's kind of how I treat them.
I mean, my
Yeah.
couple last roles have been strategy and operations, so they go hand in hand. But I have learned enough to be able to surround myself with complementary skill sets so that we as a team can really have an impact on the organization.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I think that's the beauty of it, right? Because it helps you make sense of what your best impact is and how you can surround yourself and kind of start recognizing in other people where they're making their best impact and how, so that you can complement one another in this kind of, okay, are we working towards this goal? Let's see what it is that we can do that also helps us feel engaged and motivated. Talk about that, right? Because yes, it's not a matter of I'm not able to do it. I might be able to do it, but at what cost? Is it a cost or is it an investment? Right? I mean, and that's
Right.
where the conversation changes with the GC index, because I'm
Yeah.
putting in the work and it also rewards me, as opposed to I'm putting in the work, but it costs me this, and that.
Right.
yeah. And if you look at it scale with a group of people, and you might be already thinking that way, Golubina, is when we come up with our strategic objectives and we start to look at our current processes and where we need to go, when we start mapping and aligning the GC index and really seeing how that relates to, that's what I talk about integrative. I mean, this whole like thinking of my, collective impact agility is really integration in an adaptable way, where this GC index is pretty cool because it allows you to see based on impact. You know how we always say measure everything?
Yeah.
Well, this is the piece that allows you to align it to strategy and process, where anything else out there, and we need to have you on the show when I get to the point where I show what I've been doing within the agile space, because I would love your thoughts on that, our fellow game changer strategist. Because
I'm in.
because this is that logic of what I'm talking about as adaptive systems. We only look at people at face value, right? If you have to hire 25 people, right? Especially in the tech space, right? We need more developers or what might have you. But how are we approaching it? Most of the time, they're doing it two ways. It's skills. And if you're a startup, I would say it's most likely, do they fit with us? Because they like the personality, the thinking, right? But it's never really about the impact. If it's more of the larger organization, I think they go skills and experience. They love to see like your experience, what's on your resume, and then probably third is the personality. But again, they never think about, what's our probability in being able to achieve that? Because what's the natural thing when we interview and hire? We hire alike.
Right.
You have one up though, because you have a different thing you're looking for. Because you know about yourself. You're so at an advantage than most people.
I started not writing job descriptions lately. I just can't. For the type of roles that I'm looking for, the type of people I'm looking for, there's no defined scope for the role. I need people who are willing to roll up their sleeves, deal with the ambiguity and uncertainty, and just dive into any problem and just immerse themselves into learning about the company, learning about the problem, solving it, and then moving on to the next problem.
That's
And
almost more of a soft skill than it is the hard skills.
right,
Yeah.
exactly. And it's hard to say, hire somebody who's done this before, because a lot of the problems we're solving, they haven't been done before.
Oh,
And
I love this. I love where we're
Yeah,
going with this
exactly.
topic. Uh-oh, it's getting juicy.
yeah, so that's kind of my opinion, because I feel like many people are not punished, maybe it's not the right word, but if they haven't done the job before, they're not giving the opportunity, but they may have the aptitude and the intelligence and the passion and the drive to do even a better job than somebody who has the so-called required experience.
Yeah, I love where you're going. And if Lee, if you're still out there, when it comes to agile, we talk about, being a continuous learner. And I was talking to one recruiter, my friend's company, and they're like, you know what, we can teach them the skills, but we can't teach the characteristics that we're looking
Right.
for, kind of where you're going with. We want someone that's a learner. We want someone
Mhm.
that has these abilities, which all align to those soft skills, right? It's we want learners and we want these soft skills, because we can teach the hard skills once we immerse them, because we have enough people that have them. And to be honest, there's a company, I always love their approach, Menlo Innovations, the Joy Inc. Richard Sheridan, he wrote that book, and they are one of those that never really hired like relocated people. They had the mentality where if there was a new technology or something, the people had to learn it. They weren't going to go out there and try to find that skill set. They were like, no, you need to learn that new technology. I love where you're going with that, because if we want to create an adaptive system, going back to the whole point of, what's your strategy in VUCA Times,
Right.
is what you're saying is so adaptive.
It has to be. There's no other way.
Right?
Yeah. And I really
Oh,
loved that approach of, and now I'm wondering, like, what if we didn't have job descriptions, role descriptions, and we were hiring based on what we need to do together and to get there, and what is the there? What does the there look like? Where are we going?
So,
and what needs to happen
are you singing
for us all to get there?
goals, outcomes, and the skills?
Yeah.
And when I say skills, I'm leaving that ambiguous, because it's the appropriate skills that are needed in order to achieve that. And so if you get clarity around that, and then part of your hiring process, which I love some of them do, is really, really being clear on your purpose as a company, right? Because if they're not connected to it, do you really want them working with you? And your core values, and it's core values as a company, but you as a hiring people leader, I'm sure that you don't want somebody that has conflicting core values with you, because that's going to be a conflict trying to be a people leader, right? So, a lot of times when I'm in organizations going through an agile transformation, I ask a lot of them this question, and I don't mean to, badger them about it, but they kind of go, they do the little shrug when I go, do you ask about values and how that aligns, either your company values or your values of what you want? And they go, no, we don't really ask those questions when we go to interview.
That changes the conversation so much. Oh my God, that's so powerful. Yeah. And there are questions that you can ask that really get to reveal those values, but you need to
and you can ask them in a very creative way, right? You don't go, what's your values? But there many people have the different creative ways of how they approach it. With you, the three of us, we don't care about how. It's more about the idea. So it's definitely to work for the people that pairing when it comes to doing these exercises. Now, we are going to, as we're wrapping up today, I do want to thank you, Golubina. You have to come back. I mean,
I will
seriously,
definitely
you
come
have
back.
to.
I'd love to.
you're our people. I mean, you're basically one energy level, like spectrum away from being exact with Roxana and I. So,
And plus, that's what you get with 3 game changer strategies. You get idea after idea of how you can transform the future in the space of what? Not even 45 minutes.
So next week, what we're going to be talking about here is the Great Reshuffle, and that is an article that came out where millennials are taking a breather from work, and we thought it would be such a great conversation to have.
Love that. Yeah.
And so we are going to bring that up and talk about that, Roxana and I, and we're moving to a new time. I messed it up and actually had to switch this one. I got a little jumpy there. So we're moving to evenings, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time is our new time. We're going to test it out because, yeah, we test everything if we have an idea. And Roxana thought, why don't we try the evenings? What would that look like?
Why not? Let's see.
Yeah, but you have to come back. I love the conversation.
Yeah.
It's so enjoyable.
Thank you so much.
And
I'd love
I can't
to
say
come back.
more.
Your show is amazing. I'm watching every now and then when I can during lunchtime, but your noon time spot, I'll
So
definitely check it out.
All right, we're supposed to get feedback,
Awesome.
right? What do you think
Okay.
about our time slot? Is it 6
I think
p.m.
it's
good?
perfect. Yeah.
See, yay! We got our first feedback. All right. Well, those of you that are watching us, thank you for watching today. If you are catching the replay, please put in your comments. We'd love to hear from you and let us know about our new evening 6 p.m. time slot. All right. Thanks, everyone.
See you then.
Bye now.
Bye.